And welcome to the Aaron Katsman Show. I'm here with Aaron Katsman, who speaks about your life, your money, and your investments. And as always, we're coming to you from the spiritual and soon to be financial capital of the world, Jerusalem, Israel. If you like this content, please hit the like button below. If you've not yet done so, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to both the YouTube channel and to the podcast. And if you think somebody may find this of interest, why don't you go ahead and share it with them as well? So one thing that I believe is important when you use a financial advisor is that in certain respects they're able to evolve. What does that mean? That as we're younger, we follow the textbook, and as we get a little older, we see reality. What do I want to speak about? I want to speak about retirement planning. Now, when one is planning for retirement, they tend to plan for 65, 67, whenever it is. But that unfortunately doesn't always happen for no reason that they caused. Rather, it could be they were downsized. Let's say they were AI'd out of work potentially. Or let's say, God forbid, they had a health issue. Now, I was speaking to somebody, a couple of people, who were in a profession, and they were one was in their late 50s, one was in their early 60s, and they were recently downsized from a big multinational because AI could come in and do the job instead of them for much cheaper, obviously. Now, when we had originally met years ago, we just did a regular profile, financial workup, let's say, factoring or figuring that retirement was going to be at whatever age they wanted to retire at, 67, 70, whatever it is. And now, voila, things have changed. And when you're 61 and you've already been downsized because of AI, it's not so simple to find the same type of job, at least, that you were gainfully employed in for decades beforehand. The other issue, like I said, unfortunately, is health. Or what if you can't go to work anymore? You're in your mid-50s, you can't work anymore. What happens? There's a dialogue, and I want to just read a little bit of it from Morningstar. Christine Benz speaks about this issue, and she says, I did want to touch on this last shock that we wanted to discuss, which is unexpected early retirement. You have people retiring early for happy reasons, but because their portfolios are larger than they thought they would ever be. But Dana, I'm curious how much that has happened in your practice where people have been forced out of the workforce or maybe sub-employed for a period of years later in their careers, and how you try to troubleshoot for that planning. So Dana Ansbach, who's a planner, she answers, I've seen it happen both within our client base and with friends who maybe by choice left the workforce in their mid-50s, but then thinking they could easily get back in and are finding that is not so easy as they had originally thought. With clients, certainly we see people get outsourced in their later 50s or early 60s when they plan to work to 65. And we have to recalibrate, just like anything, of a kind of look at how we put all the pieces together. What is a sustainable retirement income from this point? And how do we regroup? What we try to do is stress test the plan for an earlier retirement. Say, I know that you think you're going to work until 65, but let's build everything as you're going to retire at 60 or 62. If you save for and plan for that contingency and you get there and you work longer, great, right? That's a better outcome than planning for the opposite event and being forced to recalibrate. I think that's really important. And now I, as a more seasoned investor who has evolved, look at those numbers as well, right? Can you retire today? When I meet people in their 50s, not because they want to, but let's just do the exercise. Where are you currently holding? Because it could very well be. And I think the job of an advisor in many respects is to paint as least rosy a scenario as possible, right? Everybody can say bells and whistles, everything's going to be phenomenal, right? But ultimately, and you're going to be long gone, but ultimately the client or the prospect is going to be left holding the bag. So if you want to do what's good by the client or the prospect, you have to be honest. And sometimes honesty is painful, but you can't sugarcoat these things. You have to tell the truth. If they're set up well for retirement, tell them the truth. If they're up the creek for retirement, tell them the truth. I know it hurts and they don't want to hear it, but you have to be honest with him. So, as I was saying, part of my evolution is that we now do these tests for pre retirement age. Let's just call it retirement, right? But retirement not necessarily by choice. And I think it's just so important for clients to take a look at that because what I just mentioned before, getting downsized in your early 60s or your late 50s, is something that we see happening over and over again, especially as technology takes more part of our lives. First of all, it makes it easier for you to be replaced, number one. Number two, the more and more tech jobs are out there tend to not necessarily benefit when costs are looking to get cut. Older, higher salaried employees often are the first to go because they can be replaced by somebody who's right out of school or a few years out of school, and they can save a third of the salary or more by going younger. So keep in mind that it's not nice and it's not pretty, but it's the way of the world. And as you're getting up there into your 50s, certainly as you're getting into your 60s, it's vitally important for you to run through your assets, your liabilities, what kind of other incomes you may have or you're going to have in the future, Social Security, whatever, and run a plan and see if, God forbid, something were to happen to you tomorrow, what's your plan? What are you going to do? It's really important. And I think, I know this might be radical, but when we're doing now retirement planning, instead of planning retirement to the retirement age, I think you might want to do that, but I think that it behooves any advisor to drop that age also and run a test at a younger age just to see where the person is holding in case bad things happen. What can I tell you? It's not nice, but like I said, I personally know people it's happened to very recently. I have clients it's just happened to. I spoke to somebody today who had been out of work for a while and looking to re-enter the workplace in their early 60s after not working for a while. Now, he was pretty confident that he was going to find a job and was looking for the perfect job. And I was saying that's great, and I was encouraging him to get work, but I was doing the numbers as if he's never going to work again and what can be achieved based on what has been managed to save based on his current assets, because I didn't personally believe that he was going to get a job. I hope I'm proven to be wrong. I hope he does get a job, and I hope he gets his perfect dream job. But reality says that's probably not going to happen if he's been out of the workforce for such a long time. So I think it behooves an advisor to run the numbers on the least best scenario, right? That you're not going to work and you're already starting to have to pull money out at an earlier age than you ever dreamed of, and see if the numbers can work. Now, if they can work, awesome. If they don't work, which we see happen often, then something has to happen. Maybe forget about the dream job and drive Uber or something in between Uber and your dream job. But you've got to work and make some money if you can, doing anything, because it'll stretch whatever savings you currently have. It's a much more involved discussion. It's not for here, but these are really important issues. Okay. You've been tuning into the Aaron Katsman Show. We speak about your life, your money, and your investments. If you like this content, hit the like button below. If you've not yet done so, shame on you. But if you've not yet done so, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to both the YouTube channel and to the podcast. And if you think somebody's going to find this of interest, why don't you go ahead and hit the share button, and you can share it with them as well. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll speak to you soon.